She's unstable. She lies to our daughter. I want full custody." The words slipped out of my ex's mouth like he was talking about the weather. My chest caved in. The silence that filled the courtroom was louder than any scream I could manage. The judge kept her eyes on him, nodded thoughtfully, and my world started to slide. I wanted to answer, explain, protest. I parted my lips. Nothing came out. My fingers shook on the table. From the bench behind me, Mila squeezed my mom's hand. 7 years old, two eyes trying to figure out why her mom wasn't saying a word to defend herself. Damon wore a navy suit that fit him like armor. Same tone he'd used to talk about dinner, only now dipped in self-confidence. On the outside, he was the picture of calm. Inside, I knew, was the same man who yelled when his order came out wrong. But that part of the story wasn't on trial. The judge turned to me. All I needed was one argument, one breath of courage. I inhaled, felt my heartbeat echo in my ears, and nothing. The wall clock ticked out seconds that felt like hours. My attorney waited, eyes alert, but he couldn't speak for me. Meanwhile, every sentence Damon spoke gained weight in the record. "I want to give her stability. I'm thinking about her future." Polite words, sharp as a blade. And me, stuck, drowning in a courtroom full of rules that don't protect silence. I looked at Mila. She didn't blink. If I gave in right then, what would be left of our story? Suddenly, I understood that this moment, the terror of maybe losing her, could also be where I found my voice. Because if I stayed quiet, his version would become the truth. I took a deep breath. Just one sentence, I told myself, something to crack the perfect image he'd put on display. The judge waited. My daughter waited. I waited on myself. And then, before the gavel fell, my vocal cords finally remembered who we were. The tension in the courtroom was thick when a small, clear, determined voice rose up behind me. "Your Honor, I brought a video from Dad's phone. I think you should see it." The room froze. Everyone, the gallery, the bailiff, even Damon, turned toward the sound. Judge Harmon, unruffled until then, raised her eyebrows. Mila stood up from the bench, holding her pink school tablet with both hands. No tears, no shaking, just the courage I, an adult, was still hunting for. She walked down the center aisle, brushed past the man trying to stop her, and held the device out to the judge. "What is this?" Harmon asked. "From last weekend," Mila answered calmly. "Dad said these things when he thought I was asleep. I recorded it. If you won't believe Mom, maybe you'll believe him." I felt my heart shatter and, at the same time, knit itself back together. My daughter had done what I couldn't, break the silence. In an instant, the courtroom that always made me shrink became her stage. And everyone waited, holding their breath, to see what those images would show. That was before the judge's impassive stare and the heavy hush of the courtroom. Before the video, before any ruling. It was just the two of us, Mila and me. Our world fit into 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a floor that creaked after 10. She called the place our nest, said the pink curtains made the room look like the inside of a cotton candy cloud. Almost every night she curled up in bed with Pepper, her stuffed penguin, and asked for 2 stories instead of 1. I never said no. I work from home as a graphic designer. The money covers the basics, nothing extra. When deadlines pile up, my mom, Carolyn, walks the few blocks between us. She doesn't always find the right words, but she shows up. She brings lasagna unannounced, scrubs the bathroom when I'm not looking, and repeats, "You're doing better than you think, Arya." For a while, I believed her. Mila is 7. She watches with a clarity that unsettles grown-ups. Her questions don't allow detours. One night she found me crying in the kitchen. She said nothing. She just draped her blanket over my shoulders. That's her way. It all started there, on that squeaky floor, long before we had to explain our lives to strangers in robes. It all started with the truth jar. That was the solution I came up with when Damon and I split. I told Mila that any question, from the silliest to the most serious, could be written on a slip of paper and dropped inside. Every night before bed, we'd pull one out. Sometimes it was a funny curiosity. Why do people snore? Other times the question stung, "Will Dad stop loving me if I stay with you?" The rule was simple. Answer honestly, hide nothing. The divorce, though, was anything but simple. On paper, Damon agreed to joint custody. In practice, he wanted control, not time together. He second-guessed every snack, every outfit, every minute late to school. On his weekends, Mila came back quiet, withdrawn, and didn't say more than a yes or a no until Tuesday. I took my complaints to court, but Damon knew how to sell himself. Former college athlete, sales executive, easy smile, flawless memory for names, confidence tailored like his suit. Away from the crowds, all it took was a missing charger for him to blow up. I kept evidence, emails, texts, insults I never let Mila hear. One Monday, after an especially tense drop-off, she broke the silence. "Mom, have you ever felt scared around Dad?" I hesitated. She stared at her cereal, whisper quiet. "I did, but I guess I'm not supposed to say so." And then I remembered the truth jar. If I hesitated, what example would I set? I took a deep breath, pulled out a blank sheet, and wrote the first line. "Fear fits in here, too." I handed it to her. Mila picked up the pencil. That's when I realized, the truth hurts, but it's our only way out. That night, the ceiling seemed to stare at me. I tossed and turned, asking myself if I'd failed her by keeping the peace when I should have fought harder. A few weeks later, the summons arrived. Damon wanted full custody. In the document, he said I confused Mila, that I made up stories about him, that I didn't provide stability. His lawyer attached statements describing me as volatile, unreliable, incapable of co-parenting. When I finished reading, my hands shook so badly I had to sit on the floor. Carolyn came, held my wrist and whispered, "You have the truth. That's enough." I wanted to believe her, but I knew that in court, the truth usually speaks softly. On the day of the hearing, Damon's attorney painted a picture of a woman falling apart. Mine coached me. Show no emotion, answer only what they ask, don't interrupt. Inside, I was screaming. Every swallowed word felt like it exploded in my chest. Mila saw it all, the tears I tried to hide, the "it's going to be okay." I repeated even without certainty. She was only 7, but she picked up what no one said out loud. She realized that if the truth didn't show up, silence would swallow it. And she decided the court needed to see it with their own eyes. That Monday, the hearing started before the sun was fully up. I hadn't slept a wink. Mila, exhausted, fell asleep hugging Pepper the stuffed penguin, and I sat on the edge of the bed, counting the minutes till dawn. I knew this wasn't just a case, it was her future at stake, and the little bit of me that was left. My mom came with us. She clipped a silk scarf in her hair, the one she only wears when she needs extra courage. It was like she knew I had none left. Mila put on her sunflower-sprinkled blue dress, shoved her school tablet into her backpack, and barely spoke on the way. She rested her forehead against the window, humming a tune I didn't recognize. At the courthouse, Damon was already waiting. The same navy suit from our rehearsal dinner, but the smile now was calculated, not warm. Beside him, his lawyer adjusted the clipboard, rehearsing lines in a low voice. Damon waved at us like we were at a family party. Mila turned her face away. The room felt like an icy stage. Our names were on the docket, but the version of me under review was the one Damon had written into the record. When Judge Harmon walked in, she looked straight at his lawyer and gave the nod. "You may begin." He didn't waste a second. He painted a picture of a model dad. Steady job, spotless home, heroic willingness to shield his daughter from Arya's emotional instability. From me. With every word my chest tightened, but I clung to the one truth that mattered. Mila was there, silent, waiting for someone to see past the script. And for her, I would fight to my last argument. They projected our texts on the screen, one after another, as if they were ironclad evidence. In one, I admitted to Damon, "I'm exhausted." That became proof of instability. In another, I asked, "Don't raise your voice at me." That became the label of a control freak. And I sat there while every word from the past was reloaded against me. They called Damon. He walked to the lectern with the ease of someone who'd rehearsed in front of a mirror. "She's not well," he stated steady. She tells our daughter I'm the villain, makes her confused and scared. I'm not asking for custody out of spite, but… Dramatic pause. To protect her. The word protect cracked like a whip. Judge Harmon turned to me. Ms. Lennox, any response? I opened my mouth, but air wouldn't become sound. Sentences hammered in my chest. My tongue felt heavy. I looked back at Mila, sitting in the row behind me, legs swinging. She stared at me with worry mixed with confusion. My lawyer cleared his throat and offered a timid argument. Single-parent overload is normal. I'm resilient. A glass of water on a fire. No one remembered the day Damon cursed me on the phone in front of Mila. No one asked why she started wetting the bed again after weekends with him. Those chapters were cut from the script they presented. The judge made brief notes. Damon stood again. Your Honor, I'm asking for full custody. My daughter is in emotional danger. Shared custody no longer works. In that moment, the floor shifted under my feet, and I knew the real fight was starting. The air thinned. My fingers dug into the chair arms while I searched in vain for a way to shield Mila from what was erupting in front of her. Before I could react, she slipped her hand from my mother's, stood, and walked to the center of the room. No permission, no blink. Your Honor, she announced, firm. I brought something you need to see. Silence slid down the walls. Damon froze, color draining from his face. My mother held her breath. I turned, startled, staring at Mila. She raised her school tablet over her shoulder, holding it like a banner. It's a video from last weekend, she explained. My dad didn't know I was awake, but I heard. I thought it mattered. No one dared interrupt. Not Damon, his lawyer, or Judge Harmon. For the first time since the hearing began, the room changed. It wasn't just a file, it was the truth. Heavy, throbbing, impossible to ignore. Mila stood there unmoving, her sunflower dress now too short for her growing body. She didn't look for support in the gallery or turn to me. She kept her eyes on the judge, as if in that instant only the two of them existed. And while the courtroom held its breath, I realized the whole story, our fears, our attempts, our omissions, was converging on that simple act. Mila hadn't just saved herself. By lifting the tablet, she opened the door for everyone to see what we pretended not to. The courtroom seemed to clamp down on the air when Mila raised her voice. I brought a video from my dad's phone. You need to see it. Judge Harmon nodded and motioned to the bailiff. Without hesitation, Mila stepped forward and handed over the device. The bailiff passed the phone to the judge. Silence settled, firm as a sealed lid. Damon clenched his jaw. His lawyer stared at him, then at the tablet on the table without moving a muscle. The judge turned the screen toward herself and hit play. First, only the distant hum of a sleeping house. Then Damon's voice, harsh, angry, nothing like the calm tone he'd used minutes earlier. Think you're smart, huh? Try telling someone. See what happens. You'll end up in foster care and don't think your little mommy will save you. She's worthless. The scrape of a chair, dishes clanking. Mila's voice small. I'm sorry. He cut her off. Don't talk back. Be grateful I let you come. If you breathe a word to her, I swear. The judge paused the video. She stayed still, eyes on the frozen image. Damon shifted in his seat. The lawyer leaned in, ready to whisper something, but the judge raised her hand, asking for silence. Where did you get this? She asked, firm. He left the phone on the couch, Mila answered without wavering. I heard him yelling. I recorded it. I was scared, but I thought if someone heard it, they'd believe me and Mom. My chest tightened. My daughter, terrified, had planned everything and pulled it off with courage many adults never find. The air in the courtroom grew thick as the video ended. I wanted to run and wrap Mila in my arms, tell her she should never have gone through that. I stayed still. That victory was hers. Damon broke the silence, trying to justify himself, voice hard, defensive. Your Honor, that recording is out of context. I was just disciplining her. Enough! Judge Harmon cut in, calm but sharp. Damon fell silent at once. She turned to Mila. Thank you for your courage. You may sit down. Mila nodded. She walked back with heavy steps, as if now she felt the full weight of the moment. My mother pulled her into her lap and held her tight. The judge then looked at me. "Ms. Lennox, anything else?" I found my voice. "No, Your Honor. My daughter said it all." Harmon leaned back, closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them, she announced, "In light of this evidence, I order an immediate review of the custody agreements. Until then, temporary full custody to Ms. Lennox, supervised visits for Mr. Blake. Bailiff, escort him out." Damon paled. "You can't be serious." "Sir?" The bailiff stepped forward. With nothing left to say, Damon left. His lawyer hurried after him. People filtered out of the room, but we stayed. Mila kept quiet, head on her grandmother's shoulder. I stood, knelt beside her. "You were incredibly brave." She just tilted her head. I saw the storm in her eyes. It wasn't only the truth she'd told, it was the first time she'd faced someone who taught her to stay silent. I took her hand. Now she knew she never had to stay quiet again. When Damon walked through the courtroom doors under escort, the mood shattered. It was like cracking a window in a stuffy room. The air came back, thin, but enough to remind me my heart was still beating. The judge stepped away from the bench right after she announced the order. Her face stayed composed, but for a split second her eyes showed respect. I looked for Mela. Between us there was no pity or surprise, just that silent pact born of survival. My fingers were still shaking as I packed up her things. She was still curled in my mom's lap, tired but awake. The tablet lay on the pew, screen dark, the only trace of the video that had just played. I squeezed her hand. "Will you come with me?" I whispered. She nodded and slid to the floor. As we walked down the aisle, I felt the stares. Some looked away, some wouldn't. A woman let the word brave slip as we passed. Outside, the space felt bigger than before. I knelt so I was level with Mela and waited for what came next. Behind us, the courthouse buzz faded, like the whole case was trapped in there, unable to squeeze through the door with us. Nobody walks out of a courtroom feeling light. That morning, Mila crossed the line between silence and courage, and she would never be the same. I brushed my fingers against her arms. "You okay?" She just shrugged, still reluctant to take a deep breath. I didn't want to do it, but I had to. I nodded. "And I'm proud of you. You should never have had to fight alone." Mila dropped her gaze, like the floor might give her answers. "I thought no one would believe me." My voice came out tight. "They believed you because you told the truth, and because you stood up when nobody else could." Her tears shimmered, shy but steady. "So, I'm not going back to Dad's house anymore?" I pulled her close, tight enough for her to feel it, gentle enough not to hurt. "You're safe. That's what matters." The officers handed over instructions and a temporary supervision schedule for Damon. Before any visit, he'll be evaluated by a court-appointed counselor. There will still be hearings, stacks of paperwork, rooms that feel like battlegrounds. But today, the steepest stretch is behind us. And Mila has taken her first step toward a place where her voice will never be ignored again. That afternoon, I took the shortest route to my mom's house. Anywhere felt better than our apartment, where the silence weighed more than the walls. As soon as we arrived, she lit the stove and started stirring a pot of soup, her ritual whenever life spins off balance. Mila settled at the table with a fistful of crayons. I sank onto the couch, drowning in court forms. Between scribbles and stamps, time vanished. Then Mila laid a sheet of paper on my knees, 2 hands holding a heart, and underneath the words, "Truth is brave." The tears rose without warning, not the quiet kind you hide in the bathroom, but the kind that barrels through your chest uninvited. Mila didn't say a word. She just rested her head on my arm, like silence could speak too. Later in the bedroom, I grabbed our truth jar, a plain glass jar, but stuffed with notes we promised we'd read when we were ready. It had been forgotten for weeks. I sat on the bed. Mila settled in front of me. "Want to start?" I asked. She pointed to the first folded note. I opened it slowly and read, "What happens when the truth hurts someone?" "You wrote this?" I asked. Mila nodded. Her voice was soft. I didn't want to hurt Dad. I just didn't want to be scared. We sat there, the jar between us, the question hanging in the air. There was no easy answer, but for the first time in a long time, I felt we were ready to look for it together. I reached out and took Mila's hand. The truth can hurt, but silence hurts more. Today, you didn't hurt anyone. You protected yourself. You protected both of us. That's not wrong. She stared at the little jar for a moment and whispered, "We have to keep going." "We will," I said, "every night." When she falls asleep, I walk to the living room window. Streetlights flicker, cars pass, the city hums. Out there, nothing has changed. In here, everything has. Damon lost control of the story, and for the first time since the divorce, I breathe without fear. Mila stepped into a world far too heavy for her age, and she didn't just survive, she flipped the script. 4 weeks later, the final custody hearing arrives. The court counselor lays out Damon's behavior: control, instability, lack of empathy. He denies it, but the video speaks for itself. Combined with Mila's testimony, it's enough to suspend unsupervised custody. The judge reads the ruling. I hold my breath. This time, it's not terror, it's hope. Full physical and legal custody goes to me. Damon will see his daughter only in supervised visits, twice a month at a neutral center. No overnights, no closed doors, no whispered threats. Mila's voice shattered the illusion and opened the door to our new start. When the courtroom doors closed behind us, the sound of scraping chairs and hurried voices faded to a distant buzz. I walked down the steps holding Mila's hand. My mom was beside us, her purse thumping against her hip as she searched, almost unconsciously, for a face that wouldn't show. Damon had vanished after the first hearing, and that was silence enough for me. We headed straight to Mila's favorite diner, where the pancakes look like animals and the booths are old red sofas. She planted her elbows on the table, looked at me over her chocolate milk, and fired, "Is it over?" I thought about what would be fair to promise. "It's safer now," I said. "There's still a road ahead, but we don't have to be afraid anymore." Mila twirled the straw slowly, as if she could stir that uncertain future too. I wanted to record that moment. Peace, still fragile, but real. Sometimes the courtroom creeps back into my mind. I see Damon's face change when Mila testified. Her voice, steady and low, echoed louder than any lawyer's argument. My daughter showed that strength isn't volume, it's courage when you doubt you'll be heard. After the ruling, I went back to therapy. Not because I was about to fall apart, but because for the first time there was room to understand everything that had been wedged between one survival day and the next. I learned that swimming isn't the same as knowing how to reach the shore. It would take time, but now I had time. Mila started drawing non-stop. Animals that once looked shrunk sprouted wide wings. Landscapes unfurled horizons. I don't know where these lines will take us, but every page she fills reminds me fear has lost ground, and that our stories, hers, mine, ours, no longer fit in the shadows we left in the courtroom. It used to be easier to notice the lack of windows in those gray houses than to see the fear inside them. Now she covers the page with rooted trees and kids holding hands. In her room, she taped up a little jar made of cardboard, the truth jar. Every night before bed, she asks me to pull out a note. In one of them, I read, "Do brave people still feel afraid?" I said yes. Courage doesn't end fear. It's what we do in spite of it. A few days later came another. "Can kids protect adults too?" I looked her in the eyes and said, "You already have." I tell this story because somewhere women sit in silence, wondering if their own truth is enough, afraid the world only believes those who know how to perform for an audience. Sometimes, though, the light doesn't come from a lawyer or a verdict. It comes from a child who saw too much and decided silence won't do anymore. I used to think being a good mom meant shielding Mila from anything that could hurt. I learned it means staying by her side when it hurts, teaching her to name the truth, letting her see my tears, and showing her how to stand back up afterward. We have hard days, but they don't define us. We're no longer the scared versions Damon tried to lock up. We're tall when we need to be, quiet when we choose. We are free. In that courtroom, Mila didn't just bring the truth. She brought clarity. For the first time in years, I felt I wasn't losing her. I truly knew her. And she saved me too. If you're still here, thank you for listening. Maybe another mom, right now, needs to know someone will believe her. If this story touched you, like it, share it, and leave your comment. I read them all, and they matter more than you think. For more real, honest, heartfelt stories, subscribe and turn on notifications. There's much more to come. Be brave, be kind, and never forget, the truth matters.